Hey everybody, my name is Matty Conrad and welcome again to another episode of Unveiling Beauty. I am so excited about our episode today. Unfortunately, I am missing my co-host Nick Stenson tonight, but I will do my best to drive the car of this episode on the tracks and won't run amok too much, Nick, I promise. But today, the reason this episode is so exciting for me and so special to me is because when I was getting finished with hair school, I was trained mostly on what we call classic men's hairdressing, meaning I was told that using a clipper and using a guard and those fading techniques that are so popular and so cool right now were something that were maybe not as cool. And my eyes were opened when I moved to New York City, and I met a barber / hairdresser that changed my perspective completely on the topic. I remember for so many years as a hairdresser in the hair industry, I didn't pay for haircuts. My friends cut my hair, they took care of my haircuts. And my buddy, Nick Stenson, when he was in for a visit in New York, he went to a salon and sat in the chair of a gentleman named Mark Bustos. And he texted me immediately after and said, "You have got to see this guy. He is so incredible." So I immediately booked the appointment because I wanted to get a really sharp, really great men's haircut. And that day changed my perspective on the way that I felt about men's grooming and men's barbering. Mark Bustos showed up doing my hair, not only in a way that was really efficient, very impressive, but at the time, somebody who had never paid for a haircut at all, he charged me a price that was greater than what I was charging for women's haircuts, which kind of stunned and shocked me. However, felt absolutely worth it. And so for about 6 months afterwards, I booked about every 4 weeks to sit in Mark Bustos' chair, and I learned as much as I could, and I learned the value and the technique that's involved with barbering, and I found a new respect. And for me, it changed my approach, and it changed the way that I saw men's grooming and the effect that it can have, and the really kind of removed that stigma about classic men's hairdressing being the way to do things, and how marrying both the barbering world and the classic men's hairdressing world was really the way to bring our industry together and show the respect and the elevation for those guys who have been, mastering that trade for so many years. And so thank you, Mark Bustos. He's introduced me to a whole slew of people, a whole number of people that have just blown my mind with their skills. And today, I am so excited to have a guest on the show that has been kind of a ripple effect of introduction to the people that I've met via Mark. And before I dive into who's on the show and the special approach that we're going to have towards men's grooming, I want to remind you guys that tomorrow night, those of you engage, make sure you ask us questions. Make sure you really talk about and ask the things that you want to know. Pick our brains about men's grooming, because tomorrow night, those of you who engage tonight and tomorrow night on Instagram are going to be eligible to win a prize that we will then give away tomorrow night on our Instagram Live. So without further ado, let's jump right into the show and invite a guest and a friend of mine, Mr. Matty Conrad, who I'm sure you all know. Matty, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Eamon, thanks a lot for having me, man. It's really great to be here. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled that you can make the time to be here. I know that in this situation, you are slaying it behind the chair, taking care of your guests. But I think one of the things that if they don't know you already, you all need to make sure that you follow this man, because he not only steps up the game and elevates the level of expertise when it comes to men's grooming, but he's just got a heart of gold, and he helps people motivated and stay connected to the world. I don't want to make you blush, Matty, but the first time you approached me, I was like, oh my God, Matty Conrad's coming over to talk to me. And you spoke to me about how inspired you were of a collection that I had done. And it kind of took me by surprise that somebody of your skill set would recognize the work that I had put into improving my craft. So thank you for that moment, and thank you for the continued friendship that we have. I'm so excited to have you today.
Well, I appreciate that. I think I was more nervous to meet you than you were to meet me. I don't know, for everyone watching, everyone already knows that Matty Conrad is hands down the dream boat of the entire industry. And so, it's a mutual appreciation society, man. I appreciate that very much. That's kind of you to say that. And your work is incredible, and congratulations on last year's win and all that stuff.
Thank you. And without us giving each other too much love back and forth, because I would let you go on and on all day long. Let's jump into the topic at hand today. So specifically men's grooming, I wanted to talk and have our viewers understand like a little glimpse inside the mind of Matty, if you're so willing to do so with us, about men's grooming, the importance, and what your philosophy is with men's grooming in general.
Well, I think that's a big topic. A lot of things have happened to men's grooming in the last decade. Our shop was one of the early ones that opened up in that new model. I've known Mark for a long time as well. We were both kind of on opposite ends of the country, both doing similar concepts. I really love barbering. I looked at barbering as something to be elevated and something to be appreciated, I think, because it had become quite disposable for a long time. And I saw the way that men had polarized themselves into either really high maintenance and kind of fussy guys that go into the hair salons versus really low maintenance kind of dirtbag type of situations where it's, I'm going to pay $3 for a haircut and there it is. And there didn't seem to be much in the middle of that. There didn't seem to be this sense of pride and dignity, attached to your grooming services. It was more or less something to get off the list, it was something to get off the honeydew list in a day. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to create a situation where men started taking pride in their appearance. And that was really based around my grandfather. My grandfather was a guy who always had himself together. He always looked sharp and presentable. And it was just not so much because he was trying to make himself look like more. It was because he was trying to show respect to the people around him. And I think as a foundation, when men feel their best, when they look their best, they act differently. They behave differently. They carry themselves better. They treat others better. It's the difference between wearing maybe a tracksuit or a tuxedo. You'll act very different when you're wearing one versus the other. Now, the thing is, every haircut in and of itself can be a tuxedo. It doesn't have to be just one haircut is a tuxedo and one haircut isn't. There's so many things have been changing in the last little bit about men's grooming and about styles and fashions and trends that we're really in a time where there's a lot of transition, right? For everybody right now. The COVID thing absolutely scrambled everybody because people were going for such a long period of time without being able to come in and get a haircut that they started having to explore out of necessity different lengths of hair. And a lot of guys now have been going back and forth. Instead of being stuck in one hairstyle, a lot of guys are now going back and forth and changing things up a little bit. So what I'm going to talk about today is some of the problem areas and some of the kind of places that I really want to focus on when a client comes in that's looking to transition into something longer.
That sounds perfect. That sounds perfect. And what an appropriate topic for right now. I love the way that you just said that, because I know everybody right now is going through a phase where like, I've never grown my hair out before, but why not? I've been wondering what it would look like, but how do I do it? So let me let it grow. But I feel like oftentimes I look at it, I'm like, yeah, but you can't just let it go, right? You can't just let it grow and not do anything, because there are ways to keep it looking great along those steps along the way. So that would be an incredible way to kind of help not only our guests that are watching that are non-salon professionals, but also those service providers that are out there trying to help their guests understand that, minuscule trims and minuscule adjustments as you're growing in can still keep you looking on point and looking sharp the way you said. Because I think that I agree with you like 110% that, investing in the way that you look changes the way that you feel about yourself. And men are no different. I think sometimes they get pushed into a category where women take the time to make sure they look great so they feel great. But guys can often use the excuse and just kind of, like you said, they just kind of like trash bag it and they let it go and they just kind of don't care about it.
I think the idea of self-care has been relegated to something that is soft. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have a masculinity to it. It's self-care is something that people traditionally think of as like bubble baths and pedicures. You know what I mean? But self-care is different to everybody. It can be going to the gym. It can be going for a run. It can be going to get your hair cut. Anything that you're doing to take care of yourself physically really changes you mentally. And I think that's an important thing when we're all going through something right now that is likely to cause a lot of PTSD and depression and has really taken a mental toll on people. And I think at the end of the first quarantine, the most common thing people wanted was a haircut. That was probably the number one thing people were asking for. And so I think us as barbers, for all the people out there and all the people in the industry that were really offended by the idea of being referred to as non-essential, I think that as soon as we reopened and saw a wave of people desperate to see us, showed us exactly how essential we are to the lives of the people that sit in our chair. So I think one of the things I want to do is when we're talking about changing those up, I look for pain points. Okay, so I think that the big thing is that trims are an interesting concept, because trims to some people mean just take a half inch off the end of it. But what that's really doing is just stopping it in its tracks or just slowing its progression. I don't like to look at a trim as like, I have to cut all the hair on the head. What I need to cut is the hair that's causing the problems. And so when we're going to grow the hair out, when we're going to get a little longer, first one I think I want to look at is what is his overall style? Because I want to make sure that whatever we're doing is going to match up to his overall vibe and his style, because every good barber knows that a haircut is an outward expression of your inner vibe. And so we got to make sure that what we're doing is looking at the person's vibe before we just throw a haircut on top of them, or before we just make decisions on what needs to go. But when it comes down to the idea of getting hair longer, I'm a big believer in backward flowing hairstyles because they allow for a large buildup of length. And the big pain problem that most people have is when the sides start to get too puffy. Because for men's haircuts, traditionally classic stuff are things that make you feel leaner or stronger or amplify your jaw. They're always leaner looks. They're always looks that have a little bit tighter sides, a little bit square top construction. So that amplifies that jawline. So what I want to do here is I want to basically start taking out some of the puffiness in the sides. That doesn't mean that I need to take clippers and skin it right up. A lot of the time, if we're slicking the hair back and moving the hair back off the face, it will give a leaner looking silhouette. That's why when guys want to feel really cool, they're always like, yeah, like it's because they're leaning out their silhouette. All right. But when we do that, there's a whole lot of hair that gathers in around the ear here. And that means all the hair is moving backwards. And if all the hair is moving backwards, it's moving back here and collecting back in this area here and all colliding down at the base. So it means we're moving a ton of hair back here, and it makes the head look a little misshapen. So where we want to have the most amount of hair is right up here, right up this front area is where we want to have the most amount of hair. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to start leaning this area down, tapering out the nape area. And then that way, when we start working it back, it's going to have a nicer silhouette. I've started already on this side where we took the line up and we started going from basically the center of the ear and dropping that down towards just below the nape area there. So that when you come in here and see that, this is just more of a guide that we've set in here. I've done this with some clipper over comb. I'm gonna go show you how it's done on the other side. But what I'm looking for is from that sideburn, can we create a nice lean line all the way down so that when we push this hair back, there's like a nice lineation that drops and just kind of drops into the center there. So I'm gonna start that technique on the, it's gonna make a big difference. I'm gonna just start that technique on this side. And what I like to do is I like to use some clipper over comb. When I'm using clipper over comb, the biggest trick is making sure that the clipper stays right against the comb. And the clipper is just removing the hair. The comb is actually doing the haircut. So when I want to go in there and set my line, I can look at where my comb is. I can lift the hair up and I can just point with my comb a nice line right down the way that I want it to flow. Now, I don't want to just let the comb sit right against the scalp. I want to angle this away until I can see the teeth popping out. Once I see the teeth popping out, I can come in here right against the comb like this, and I can start setting my line using my clipper comb. And now that angle away is what's helping me create some buildup for the hair. I want to make sure that we're working to blend into some of the hair that's up here. So I don't want to just create a line that I can't get rid of. I just want something that's going to be kind of a guide and help me into the center here. Now, when I'm cutting across like this, it's going to end up creating a really hard line like that. But when I'm working with my teeth and my clipper and the teeth of the comb in the same direction, what's happening is I'm creating like a softer finish to it. So this is just basically like a clipper over comb technique. And the reason I like this one is it's really quick. I like this kind of stuff using clipper over comb if I have to build up a very short length to a lot longer length in a short amount of space. That gives me a lot easier time to build up. If I'm going in here with clippers and guards, I can only budget up in tiny little sections and it takes a really long time. And more often than not, I'm probably gonna take it too high into the blend. What I wanna do here is I really wanna work with a clipper comb and I wanna polish that line up just a little bit and blend it into the lengths that we have up top. So that's gonna help me get started. And then I'm gonna start being able to blend that out using the guards.
Matty, I don't want to interrupt your flow, but is there any way while you're actually doing that, the camera can come a little closer?
Yeah.
Just so we can
get the camera a little closer. Yeah, you bet.
Sorry, I know you're trying to work with like a...
No, not at all.
It helps because like I can see that difference already, but I want to make sure we really get to see the angle of the comb and that removes that weight.
So what's going to end up coming in here is I got my comb here. I'm waiting for the angle of the comb to add towards this outer weight line. And then I can blend that down. when I want to blend, I'm going to come in here and I get some hairs that are sticking out through the comb. I'm going to lift them up, still with the tilt, always tilting the comb out away from the head. I'm going to start blending that out. Now this is just to rough in the shape, all right? So this isn't going to look perfect when you do it. I just want to rough the shape in so that I know what I'm aiming for, so that I can go and blend out whatever's below this using my guards.
Matty, what got you started in barbering in the first place? Were you always barber specific, or did you start with like a whole cosmetology license and then decide to specialize in men's grooming?
I started out as a hairstylist. I was actually on the artistic team for Schwarzkopf Professional for a number of years, and traveling around and teaching. And what ended up happening was my grandpa passed away, and I started thinking a lot about that he left behind, the impact that he had on the world. I was really fascinated with those haircuts, the kind of handsome old school haircuts he got, because at that point, most guys looked a lot like Justin Bieber. And for me, Justin Bieber was not really inspirational. I had that Ashton Kutcher haircut thing going on. So at that point, I decided to get into the men's grooming thing. People thought it was really weird, to be honest. People thought the haircuts were weird. They thought the idea that I would change from being a hairstylist that was really busy and booked up and turn into a barber was weird, because barbering seemed like really disposable and, you know, not very celebrated at that point. So yeah, I ended up opening a barber shop and quitting hairdressing and deciding to go in a different direction. And honestly, it was the most authentic thing I've ever done for myself, because instead of trying to fit into the mold of the hair crowd that was popular and cool, I was kind of doing my own weird thing. And it felt more me. It felt more like truly me. And the work I was doing mattered to me. And the things that I was doing were inspiring to me. And I was excited to do them. And I never had a single day where I was like, oh God, I have to get all these people done today. Or, oh, Mrs. Jenkins, or, oh, you know, all these. I never had that. I never, ever had it. I was excited for every client that came in the door. Every client was a new opportunity to do something cool and exciting. So I loved that. And I've never looked back. And 10 years later, it's been a hell of a ride. But I've met you and all the amazing people in this industry, and Tatiana, who's coming on later. She's really cool. It's been a really cool thing. I'm going to put a guard on my clippers now. Okay. So at this point, I'm using a guard to blend. And when I'm using a guard to blend, I usually start with my clippers open, because I'm trying to leave a little bit extra. I can always close them down and get a little bit tighter. But what I'm going to do to blend is really work a rocking motion here. It's a very gentle rocking motion, working away, making sure there's some tension on the skin. I don't put tension above those lines. I'll put tension below. And when I put tension below, what happens is the skin tightens up, but the line doesn't shift. If I put tension above, the line stretches and blends and bows. So I want to make sure that when I put that tension below, it's holding the skin nice and tight. And I'm going to use a rocking motion to blend into that line now. So I'm able to kind of start removal of just a little bit of that heaviness. And when it's open like this, I'm working up nice and high, still maintaining that line. I want to be able to maintain that line, because that's the part that I really want to keep as solid as possible. I just want to break it apart. I just want to break it apart a little bit. Thank God I've got another one of these just right here. Always keep a spare. Then what's going to happen is I'm going to start going lower and lower and blending that out. So I'm going to work a little lower. I'm going to close my lever. I'm going to keep working here just to blend that out a little bit. I want to maintain just a little bit of a shadow to it, because I really love what the outline does. I'm going to show you outlining in a sec. And as I get really tight there, I can hear the hair getting cut. And once it goes kind of quiet, I stop and I switch my guards to a lower one. This is going to be my 1/2. I'm going to open it all the way up again, which makes it more like a 1. And again, I'm just going to start polishing that out with that rocking motion, working lower and lower and lower until it is gone. Now these little hairs like to cyclone around a little bit, so I always like to turn my clipper over and make sure I'm pushing into the growth of the hair. When you're pushing into the growth of the hair, it means that you're cutting the hair directly on its base. And you want to cut the hair directly on its base if you want to control the length directly using the length of the guard. All right, so I've got a 1/2 guard now. And the 1/2 guard basically is going to go down, instead of all the way open, all the way closed, I'm going to stop at thirds. So I'll go like maybe 2 clicks or 2 clicks down a little tighter. And then I'll go 2 more clicks and work just a little tighter. And then all the way closed. And that's going to take me right down to my 1/2. Then I can go with my bare clipper. I can open it all the way up. That's at a 1/2 as well. And then I can go just a little bit tighter. And I'm just taking very small motions, making sure I don't overlap my work that I've done previous. A little bit tighter here. Now, the nice thing is that for a lot of guys, when they start growing their hair out, the biggest problem area is the mullet back here. The mullet starts to get a little annoying, and then the puffiness around the ears. So we need to figure out what to do with the puffiness around the ears as well. The big thing about it is that most people, if they want to grow their hair out, I don't always recommend cutting the sides a lot shorter just so we can have a longer top. Like once the hair gets to a certain point where maybe the length at the very front goes past the highest point of the head, it's going to start holding itself back on its own. And if they want to keep growing it out, what happens if we cut this short is it just starts to collect more and more weight in this corner until it becomes kind of a muffin. And we don't necessarily want a muffin, you know what I mean? So what we want to do is we want to be able to help clean this up while still cultivating some length in the sides. We don't want to obliterate that length in the sides. So instead of going in there with my clippers, I'm going to go in there and do that work with my scissors. So I'm just going to wet this hair down because I always love working on scissor work with wet hair. I don't like doing dry scissor work unless I'm doing some cleanup or some scissor over comb or something like that. Just beats on my scissors, and I do so many haircuts in a day. I want to try and treat them as well as I can. Now, the big problem that we have here is typically the hair that starts to come over the ears, collect over the ears, or collect down the bottom here. Now, most people think that what you need to do is you need to taper this out, you need to blend this up. What I really do is I go from about the parietal point out like this. I'm going to take that hair and I'm going to drop this straight down. And if I drop this straight down, what I can do is I can just create an outline. The fun thing about this is that the outline actually removes the bulk of the weight. So if I just tilt them over here and I drop this down, this is the part that everybody always hates, is the hair that grows over the ears. I'm sure you've had it. That's when I need a haircut. You know what I mean? So where I'm going to start is I'm just going to start by outlining around the ear. I'm going to take that weight out of there, make it as clean as I can, creating just a nice arc shape around the ear. I'm going to draw this hair back so that it sits kind of where the hair is likely to sit. You make sure to collect all those little hairs. And then I'm going to pull the ear forward. Same thing. And I'm basically just going to clean it up right until I get back down to that line that I kind of set at mid-ear. So the reason I set the line at mid-ear is because if I was to take this a little bit lower, all of the hair in this area that I cut, as soon as we start pulling it back, is going to create a hole. But if we take it to about the mid-ear or about that area there, it actually blends right back into the rest of the haircut. So instead of having to go and do a ton of work in here, it really just need a slightly better outline. Now, what I'm going to do here is the bulk that is collected right on the side of his face can be kind of dealt with by taking this section forward, combing it into the front area here, and creating another arcing shape that kind of complements the parietal point. So what we've done here is now we've taken the bulk out of the front of his ear, because by the time we pull this back, all of that hair blends and it actually creates a slightly leaner looking silhouette. The best thing I can do at this point is really just take a couple quick sections here, elevate them out. And if I elevate them out horizontally like this, I'll be able to see whatever's overlapping, and I can just clean up whatever I need to make sure that it blends really nice and smooth. When you're working in the sides and you want the hair to slick back like this, I'm always taking horizontal sections. And the reason I'm taking horizontal sections is because I want this line that I'm creating in here to be really, really smooth. The smoother this line is, the smoother it holds itself back, because when you're pulling all the hair like this, it means all those hairs are lying down perfectly together. If you have hair that you're taking in vertical sections, it's always going to end up being kind of choppy and chunky when you pull it straight back. So I always take these linear sections along the sides, and that's starting to look much better already. All right, when it comes into this little area of weight that we start to gather where all the hair is being held back and there's the taper in the bottom, this is when I start getting into my texture shears. And the texture shears, I know a lot of people, if you're Sassoon trained, have been told that this is the Antichrist. It's not. It is absolutely not. It is a necessary tool. When you're dealing with hair that is very, very short, no amount of point cutting that I do through here is going to do anything other than punch holes in it. So the shorter the hair is, the more diffused the texture needs to be, because there's only two types of texture that we artificially insert into hair. It's either going to be blended and diffused, which means it's going to spread apart, or it's going to be chunky and choppy, which means it's going to clump together. And the way that works is the finer the pieces of texture are, or the more dissimilar those lengths are, the more it's going to spread apart. The similar lengths of hair will want to clump together. And so when we're using big, deep point cuts, we're making large chunks of similar length hair. But when we're using these, we're making tons of little dissimilar lengths of hair, which makes them spread apart and diffuse. So when I'm wanting to blend this area together and make sure I deal with this weight, this is when I'm going to go in with my texturizing shear, and I'm going to start to blend out, working just through the ends. No matter what type of texture you're putting through the hair, the thing you want to remember is that all texture lives in the last inch to inch and a half of hair. Bulk reduction, okay, or thinning, when people say, please don't use the thinning scissors, that happens closer to the scalp. So if you're using these close to the scalp, all you're doing is removing bulk. But if you're wanting to diffuse or blend, you need to be using them out towards the ends of the hair. So this is something that I use probably a lot in my work, especially if I'm working with people that like more of a classic old school finish to their stuff, especially because old school haircuts are always about this diffused, blended look. They look very, very solid. So you don't end up having a lot of chunky texture in there. But even guys that like old school haircuts, like CJ here, they still have their own unique style, their own unique way of wearing them. You know what I mean? Their own simple way of like just putting their own twist on it. And I'm a big believer in spending time to actually get to know what that is, because that really comes into how we finish it, how we blow dry, how we style. All of those kinds of things are really questions that we've answered for ourselves during the consultation, where it's, what is this guy's style? What is he going to go for? And so I like to base my product recommendations around that. And for a lot of people coming in and going, well, I want my hair to look more like this. Can you cut it like that? Is usually the first question, right? And we usually can't cut it like that. It's more about how you choose to style it. We can do the haircut that supports styling, but all the haircuts that I do can be styled a lot of different ways, depending on what you put in them, depending on the approach that you take. So just to finish this side out, and then we'll get into a little bit of styling, all I like to do is I like to take my trimmer. Now, trimmer is super different from a clipper because the trimmer has very, very fine teeth and the blade is set very close to the front, which means that it's really for outlining. It's really for outlining or shaving the skin really, really close. It's not for doing a whole haircut. A lot of people have one of these, say, can I cut my hair with this? And the answer is no. Because the teeth are so fine, it pushes hair around. And if it's pushing hair around, you're not getting a very clean finish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my trimmer and I'm going to use it to make a line from, again, that little corner point, which we made behind the ear. And I'm going to drop that right down the nape of his neck here. And I'm going to angle it just slightly back, but I want that to be as clean as possible. The one thing I'll say about an outline is it's really, really important and shouldn't be overlooked, because the outline itself is pretty much what makes the haircut look awesome. Old school haircuts are all about outlines, all right? And outlines, like a really well-cut outline can totally change the look of a haircut. The interior can be very mediocre, but if the outline is done really well, it looks like a sharp haircut. Outline is what 90% of people see about a haircut. And so if you get in here close, Cam, you can really start to see that just by putting that much cleaner line on there, it really makes the interior look a lot better as well. It really sits down nicer. So that nice clean outline, even if we're going to taper this out right to the skin down here, doesn't have to be janky and messed up. This is really that nice line that's drawing that haircut down, giving it that really strong look. All right, so we've got that side is a little more done, and I'm going to get into some styling stuff just so we don't totally lose all our time here. I wanted to show you really quickly what we're going to do for styling. Go that way. Ooh, there we go. All right, I had to move my camera guy around. All right, when we want to start doing some styling work, I'm always a big believer in teaching guys how to style their own hair, because that's what success means for them. Like, if our job is to make them feel better about themselves, then we have to give them the tools to look better by themselves. We can't just do a nice haircut and then have them feel defeated when they go home and feel like, oh yeah, I suck at styling my hair. Guess what? Every guy sucks at styling his hair. I suck at styling my hair. We didn't learn that stuff when we were kids. We didn't even know that was important until recently. And so we're at a deficit. So for guys, what I like to do is I like to give them a blow dryer at tutorial, like a really quick one, so they understand how blow drying works. Now, blow drying is an interesting thing because like it only has heat and airflow. That's the only thing that comes out of a blow dryer is heat and airflow. Okay. And so you don't need to like have to overthink it. It's like, well, what settings should it be on? It should be on medium for both. That's it. Medium for both. If you have really, really curly hair and you're trying to straighten it out, you might want it hot. If you have really like straight hair and you're trying to put bend in it, you might want it hotter because heat changes the shape of hair. Hair is like plastic. So if you actually, if you take hair and plastic side by side and heat them up, they do the same thing. Plastic gets really soft and bendy. Hair gets really soft and bendy. When you cool it down again, it gets rigid. When you cool it down again, it gets rigid. So it acts like plastic does. And so what I'm gonna do just to give it a little bit more reinforcement, I'm gonna put in some primer, which is a prep spray that is more like a kind of a sea salt type spray that has a tonic in it. So it stays really nice and soft, but it's great for volume. The only area where you want volume in guys' hair that's longer is right at the hairline here, right in the front, because that's where you get this like cool wavy thing going on, right? So we wanna have a little bit at the front. We don't need it at the back. So don't put the product back there if you don't need it. The way we make hair stand up is by pulling it away from the head. If you want it to lay down, don't pull it away from the head. You want to smooth it out or make it less bulky, then don't pick it up, right? Every hairstylist has always had that client that comes in and goes, I don't know how to style my hair. And they'll show me what you do. And they're like, well, I just do this. And it's like, did I do that? Nope. So you're always going to get what you're going to get from what you've done. So what's going to happen here is I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to get a medium heat and a medium airflow. And what I want to do is I want to take this hair that wants volume. I'm going to just leave that alone for a second. And I'm just going to start smoothing back the hair that doesn't. I don't love getting immediately into like a brush with a guy that doesn't have a lot of experience styling his hair. Okay, if I grab brushes and a million other things, he's gonna get really intimidated. And so I like to work with guys where I'm like, okay, no problem. Why don't we just take something easy that you know how to work with, your hands. Because you give him a brush and 3 new products and a blow dryer he's never seen before and a whole new regimen, you're basically asking him to do long division algebra. All right, so we're not gonna do that. This is very DIY styling for barbers right now. You know what I mean? I like coaching people on how to be successful behind a chair, not just how to be successful on Instagram. So I find this very chair-friendly stuff. I like to be able to get that back. And what I want to show you is the difference that we've created here from side to side. All right, so even just before I do that, I'm just getting that airflow back. And you'll notice I can get that airflow really, really tight using that nozzle. I can get it right against his scalp if I want to, because the airflow is doing all the work here. That's essentially what it is. I'm following it all the way around the head. I'm pushing everything back into the middle. And you can see that without a brush or anything, what we've done is we've created a haircut here that really flows back and tapers out nice in comparison to what we started with. All right, now as we want to build volume, the one thing I say is don't just lift up the front part and then hope that's going to do it. You need to build a cushion, like it needs to kind of have some buildup. So what I do is I take the back area here, all right, and I start from the back and I start pulling the hair up. And if I pull the hair up, it's going to create volume. Right, so up and blow dry, up and blow dry. And the nice thing is when you're working with your hands, you can feel the hair getting drier. So you don't need to like wonder, oh, I don't know, is the hair dry yet? No, you'll feel it. It's very, very malleable. So it makes it really easy. So here we do that. I'm gonna take another section here and just pinch it with my fingers and pull it up. And airflow is always going back. If you want the hair to go back, the airflow has to go back. So always making sure that we got that going on. Just lifting that up. And if I lift the hair straight up, it's gonna create volume. I wanna teach them how to create a little more volume than that though. I wanna see like, how do we get even more volume if it's like somebody that really, really likes a lot of volume? Well, the trick to getting even more volume is not lifting the hair up, it's lifting the hair forward. So if we pull the hair forward like this, I'm gonna be able to get the most amount of volume right at the front hairline. Now I wanna make sure when I'm using my fingers like this, I want to make sure the root area gets dry, because if the root area isn't dry, it's all going to fall over. But when I get the ends, I want my fingers through here. So it's almost acting like a big comb. And if it's acting like a big comb, I'm still going to be able to have some of the natural wave that he has in his hair. Now, the biggest mistake that I see is for people that are like, hey, I really want to have this haircut and this hairstyle, these cool things we do for Instagram that look perfectly smooth and polished, and they're really, really awesome. The problem is that most guys don't wear their hair like that. And if you're looking at like any other inspiration than Instagram, what you're gonna end up seeing is guys in Hollywood, you're gonna see models, you're gonna see guys in fashion, you're gonna see all of this stuff where these guys like don't have tremendous haircuts. You know what they have? Tremendous confidence. And that's the thing. You look at these guys, all the guys that come in, it's like, I see a whole bunch of Hollywood heartthrobs and stuff that people are always coming in with pictures like, oh, hey, can you please make my hair look like this? I'm like, okay, well, yeah, but it's not going to look like that on you. And it's like, it's not about looking like somebody else. It's not about trying to change this person into a living sculpture of haircut. It really is about trying to get them to feel confident about the way they look, confident about the things that are natural about them. Right? So when a guy comes in and he's wavy hair, I don't like trying to straighten it out. I don't like trying to change it into something that it didn't start as. I much prefer to just work with what he has and try and make it look like the best version of that, the best version of himself that I can. Now, I haven't cut the other side, so I'm not focusing on that because I don't want to run out of time here. So I'm just going to give you guys the profile shots.
You're good, Matty. Actually, I have one question for you. You can continue blow drying. I'll buy you a little time with that blow dry really quick. We're not in any rush.
You're the coolest.
But I do want to talk about a little bit because you said so many things. This is the quietest I've ever been on the episode because everything that I was about to kind of lead you into, I'm like, oh, he just picked it up and nailed it and said exactly what I was hoping he would say. So, but so many things about what you said that I would just kind of like to stick a pin in and help people kind of understand and remember. One of the first things that you said was discovering that you became your most authentic self by doing what you were most passionate about. I can't stress enough to the people that are watching, whether you are in the beauty industry or whether you're just a person who's understanding that like, I'm never going to show up and be my best if I'm trying to be somebody else. And so the second that you understand who you are and you show up being your authentic self, even if it's not the most popular thing at the time, you're going to succeed and you're going to find a way of loving what you do and loving yourself a little bit greater. So like a gem there that I wanted to just stick a thumb in and really celebrate you for taking that and really changing the game because you follow your authentic heart in that. Also, blew my mind away today in the way that you approached that over the ear and forward, because I, like many of those hairdressers, kind of get into this place where that horseshoe section along the top became sort of like my zone one or my, make that part even. And then I was challenged to try to connect the top with the sides. And I never thought about how quickly and efficiently you left that fullness to really help it blend and not create that, I think you called it like a mushroom shape or
let me
just, on the top.
Let me just show you before we put the styling products in a little closer, Ken. I just want to show you the difference from side to side here. Hopefully, let me see if I can get a better angle here. If you can see right now, I'm sorry, that's distorting his face. We've got a very kind of puffy side over here, and this side looks very, very lean. But you watch how little hair I actually took off of this side. What we did is we took the pain areas. We took the forward, which is the puffiness over the ear. We took all the hair that was colliding over the ear so that when we started to have a little bit of a more lean looking shape that all kind of blends together, we've already got that buildup. We've already got that square shape. We didn't have to do a lot, but it can have a huge, huge impact, like a dramatic impact. Sorry, I'm all over the place with my camera right now. Let me see if I can get it.
You're good. It shows such a difference.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do here is I really wanna start picking styling products, and I like to play with the hair a little bit when I get it dry. I like to see kind of what it wants to do. I always bring it back to the client. I'm always thinking about what is gonna be the best way for them to express themselves. What product is gonna express that for them, you know what I mean? Because products are very, very unique in that they all have a kind of a unique ability to do one thing well. You know what I mean? It's not one size fits all. One pomade isn't going to take care of every guy or every hair type for every style. You know what I mean? That's why we have a variety of stuff. And one of the things that I really loved this year that I started loving seeing was the feeling of undone. You know what I mean? The done but not done kind of look that I think like Brad Pitt when the Oscars came around, like that was clearly like hairstyled, but it didn't look all producty and chunky and heavy and over the top. It was really, really subdued and really natural, but very together. And so I love that because I created a product this year that's my favorite product that I've been working with. It's called Dry Grooming Cream. And it's the idea of how do we get rid of like all the puffiness. How do we get it to look natural and soft, like it hasn't got a lot of product in it, like it hasn't been overstyled, but at the same time, something that guys are gonna be able to do themselves. So I kind of just grabbed a product like this. Hey man, we'll be with you in a second. It's live because we're actually in a shop. This is the dry grooming cream. All right, the dry grooming cream is one of my favorites. I'm gonna take a fair amount of it in there because he's got a thick amount of hair. and I'm just going to work it through. Now it's my favorite smell, which is also like just a selfish thing that I like. It's like smells like cola bottles and cucumber, which is a weird combination, but it's amazing. And what's going to end up happening here is I'm going to work with this. I don't like to start right at the hairline. I like to start on top. That way I don't get that greasy front finish. But the nice thing about this product is it's got a little bit of moisture in it that helps break down some of the volume. Moisture will help break down volume in hair. So if you have too much volume, it'll help you get rid of that. But the nice thing is once this hair product dries in the hair, it dries totally matte and feels really, really natural. So it'll help you kind of compress that if you wake up with that weird bedhead, or you wake up with that thing where you're like, I still want my hair to move a little bit. I want it to feel natural. I want it to feel like it's my hair, but I don't want to just let it go bedhead. You know what I mean? So it gives you that really nice in between. And it's depending how you want to finish this, you can go in there with like a comb and things like that and really smooth it out. But truth be told, for those natural looks, I usually just try work with my hands. I try working with my fingers and give him something that's just going to feel a little more natural for him. Like like he did it himself, so that he's not walking down the street feeling a little high maintenance. Because again, keep bringing it back to those influences, those things that people bring in. Like hairdressers get so up their own ass about Instagram that they're trying to like impress each other rather than paying attention to like what are people actually wanting? You know, what are people actually wanting to look like? And so it's I always try and keep things very, very commercial with my work. When my stuff on Instagram is super chill and commercial. All the stuff that I do in the shop is always chill and commercial. I have creative moments where I'll go out and I'll do my creative stuff. I'll do that for me, and I really love that too. But for the most part, like I spend a lot of my time doing commercial stuff. Like COVID is the reason I am back in the shop. And being back in the shop has been amazing for me because it's allowed me to really reconnect with my clients and with people instead of just being on a stage and teaching, which is, as much as I love that, I really have had an amazing opportunity to just get back to the roots of what we do, the real basics, like the real service of people, taking care of guys, you know, helping them out with their personal style. You know, we are people that do that. We are consultants almost for people. You know what I mean? We give them all the tools that they need to feel confident by themselves. You know, so that's basically the technique. Thanks, man. So that's,
that
that's
looks really
the
good.
techniques.
Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to talk over you. I just want to make sure that you there's a couple of things I really want to like anchor that you said so beautifully, because just being sensitive about like, you know, picking up all of our tools and approaching a gentleman who's like, I don't have that at home. I don't know that I'm going to like, you know, the idea of picking up a round brush or a brush and a blow dryer, to a lot of guys, it's like check out. They don't want to even like think about it. They're like, that's not me. That's not the style that I want to have. That's too much work. And so those are the types of tips. Like I was going to ask you, like, what are the main things that you would say are like must-haves for guys that are at home between visits? I think right now the haircut that you showed very clearly showed them that doing a quick little like in the mirror kind of like clipper cut at home is not really going to cut it. But they can go in now with the right kind of questions to their stylist, and they can feel like they can ask and explain and say, what product would work best for me? This is what looks, you know, this is the look that this is who I am. So can you help me, and what product should I be using so that I can achieve this? And having those stylists that are watching out there, like, shut out what you normally do and take a second and listen to your stylist and build that relationship with them. Give them what they're wanting, and not so much what you feel like is going to impress the rest of the hair industry with showing off all your bells and whistles. So well said, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. The other thing, the last thing I want to leave people with too is get to know all of the tools in your toolbox. You know what I mean? It's not, the men's grooming world isn't a battle of clippers versus scissors. It's never been. It's all those tools. It's understanding that every tool serves a purpose and it does something specific. That's including your products. Really get to know your tools. Don't be afraid to try something new. Don't be afraid of something you haven't tried before. Because there is something out there that will not only help you make better products out of your haircuts, but will also give you maybe new creative ideas or save you time or do a whole other group of things that is maybe just the only thing standing in the way of that is somebody else's ego that's told you that you shouldn't do it, right? There's nothing there. There's no ego in this industry that is worth anything. Like, you really just need to provide the best possible haircut for this person that you possibly can, regardless of whatever tools or whatever products you subscribe to. There's so many good product lines out there. There's so many great tools out there. There's not one better than the other. It really is personal to what you love, what works best for you, and what allows you to create the artwork that you want to create.
Well, thank you, buddy. I could not have asked you to share better tips, more useful stuff. That connection between, mental health and men's grooming all fused together, just like I expected. I really appreciate you taking the time in your crazy busy schedule to share your passion, your knowledge, your information, and the heart that you have for our industry and for making an impact, not only in the clients that are sitting in our chair, but also the hairdressers that are out there slaying it behind the chair. And sometimes I think wonder if their work makes a difference or if it matters. And you definitely embody the fact that we are making a difference, whether it's one client at a time or one Zoom call at a time or class. So thank you for your energy. Thank you for your impact and your knowledge. And thank you for taking the time to be on our show today.
Thanks, buddy. It was really fun. I really appreciate you having me.
You're the best, buddy. Keep carrying on. I'll let you get back to making money behind the chair.
Yeah, we got clients waiting outside. I gotta go. I'll see you.
Bye, Matty. Nice to see you. Bye.
Bye, Jenna.
Wow. I mean, if there was any question about the impact and the effort behind the work that Matty really does provide for our industry, I think he just nailed it. I'm so glad he was on the show. But now we're moving on to a great portion of our show that's an ability for us to spotlight one of our stylists. And today we have a salon district educator who works for us at Ulta Beauty, and her name is Tatiana Rosas. And I'd like to welcome her to the show right now.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm super excited.
It's our pleasure. So let's start off by just talking about where you're located, how long you've been with Ulta. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, I am in the South Phoenix area of Arizona. My market is Tucson and South Phoenix, so you can catch me a little bit all over the place. I started with Ulta back in 2019 in October, but I was out in California in the San Jose district. And then I got transferred to Arizona in March, the week that COVID hit. Yeah.
That's tough. Well, it sounds like you're doing well, though, and I would love to hear, based on today's topic, your name was bubbled up to me as somebody who is very passionate about it. So talk to me about your feelings and your just passion about men's grooming in general.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of what you and Matty talked about in the beginning, just the simple aspect of what the difference a haircut can make for anyone. But I always saw a difference when I did do my men's grooming, even just as simple as a neck trim, a mustache trim, sideburn trim right before a first date. The confidence level just absolutely boosted. And I actually got into men's grooming. I started off as a cosmetologist, and I was working in a high-end salon with zero clientele. I actually would just ask the gentlemen that were waiting for whoever was getting their hair done if they needed a neck trim or a mustache trim. And that is kind of how my career took off with men's grooming. So when I started to do that, getting into the different products that are coming out now, I mean, 2016 was probably a huge year for men's grooming and products. Just the amount of versatility that all these brands were coming out with. And I just think it's such an awesome feeling that Ulta has given me this opportunity to open up the doors to getting stylists more comfortable with clippers. Being the services district educator, I see where the opportunities for stylists are as far as how they can build their business. And it seems like a lot of cosmetologists are really scared to work with clippers. And you don't need to be a licensed barber to be comfortable with clippers. So that's where I come in, and I just think it's such an important tool to have in your back pocket, because you never know when you can fit in a super quick, haircut, clipper cut into your day for styling. And not only that, I really hope to bring in, maybe some new services, maybe like a signature clipper haircut experience to Ulta, just to open up those doors and to make the men feel more comfortable shopping at Ulta.
I like that idea. And I also think that one of the things that's a great opportunity for our male clientele, especially working at Ulta Beauty, is oftentimes, Ulta Beauty, if the holidays are right here, they're right upon us, and our male guests come in, and oftentimes it's a great place for them to check off a lot of things that they can buy for their significant other, male or female. It's just a great place to come and get a haircut and like check off their shopping list where they can get like anything that's beauty related. So what a great opportunity during the holiday season to up your ticket price or really like add and help them out so that their holiday shopping experience is like, wow, I got a haircut that makes me feel great, but I also got to pick up a few gifts for those people that are on my list. So that's one of my favorite things about being at Ulta Beauty. And I know that's one of the things that you coach and talk about with our stylists is how to guide our clients, whether it's male or female, into taking advantage of the fact that we have the largest waiting room in the industry and they can go out there and like get holiday shopping finished for anybody that's on their list.
Yes, absolutely. And that is another huge passion of mine, giving gifts. I would probably say that's my biggest love language. I actually have a couple ideas for the gifts that Ulta has for men. Would you like to hear some?
Yeah, of course.
All right, so probably the biggest, most versatile gift is going to be the Supercharge Your Skin Sampler Kit. It has all of the best skin base washes and moisturizers for men. And then after that is going to be our Maverick Grooming line from Paul Mitchell. This has probably been my favorite. Using the grooming spray for all kinds of looks, my blow-dried looks, my wash and go looks, my grooming cream. It helps to tame, those nice waves or those nice tight curls. And I can also use it in straight hair. So those are a couple of my favorites that I'm going to be getting this holiday season for the men in my life. And so I hope that helps some of you out. And if you do have any more questions, you can also chat with me live on the Ulta Concierge app. So we will be able to give personal gift giving guides to our guests.
Nice. I love that. Also, I would love for our viewers to know where you're located, what store you're located, so that if they want to book an appointment and get in your chair and your magic hands in their hair, where can they go?
Sure. So right now my salon is in South Phoenix, store 1620 on Baseline, Ulta Beauty Legacy Village. So that's where you can find me. You can also book online at ulta.com.
Perfect. Tatiana, thank you so much for your tips, for your passion, and for helping to elevate and continue to grow our stylists out there, especially right now. Your motivation and your passion is very much appreciated. And also, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show today.
Of course. Thank you for asking me to be a part of it.
All right. Happy holidays, then.
All right. Happy holidays. Thank you.
Okay, you guys, that's it for the show today. What a great show. Don't forget tomorrow night to tune in while Nick and I do an after the show on Instagram Live to recap this episode and announce the giveaway for those of you who engaged tonight. Let me also remind you that the next episode on Monday is going to be featuring one of our favorite brands, Lancome, so you won't want to miss that. Before I say goodbye, lastly, don't forget to follow us on unveilingbeauty.show on Instagram and our Ulta Beauty YouTube channel. Until then, we'll see you guys tomorrow night and see you next week.